And I'm going to introduce Mitch. Okay, so Dr. Mitchell Revalski. These are some memories of Mitchell. And this slide just says, wow. That's awesome. That's great. So what it takes when you get a PhD, what are some characteristics of people with PhDs? They're focused, they're organized, they're intelligent, they can spend a lot of time doing research and stick to it no matter what they find. But like the comic shows, you also have the ability to function on minimal hours of sleep. And so we all know that's what it takes when you go for a PhD. What I'm here to tell you is a few more things about Mitch's character that you may not know beyond the PhD requirements. So it actually all started here in this room being, okay, the button, here we go. Okay, this room right here. It was about 20 years ago this spring, 1999, that Dr. Will Vanderveen was here speaking, looking for astronomers from the NIAA to volunteer to work with teachers in a classroom, elementary and middle school classrooms. And he was looking for teachers to go in as part of Project Astro. And you would partner with a teacher, and you would agree to go 3 or 4 times a year. Okay.
Stand on here.
Okay. There's no spot. 3 or 4 times a year, and do some activities with the students in the classroom. So since I was a teacher at Voorhees High School, I had an astronomy class. I volunteered as the astronomer for the middle schools and elementary schools in the area. And I was assigned 2 elementary teachers and 1 middle school teacher, Mrs. Deborah Zmeda, at Woodland School, who was later to be Mitch's middle school science teacher. So that's, we're setting this up here, how it started. A year later, I was invited to join it's a pilot grant from NASA, and it was called the Ideas Grant. And the idea was to get high school students to be trained as mentors that would go out in the community and give astronomy education to the community and elementary schools. And so since I also was a teacher at the high school, I was part of this grant. And my job was to recruit 2 or 3 students to join this group. And so I put it out there for the students, and first meeting we got 15 kids, later became 20. And these 20 students were trained by professional astronomers in planetarium duties, and how to run an activity in a classroom, and do telescope work, all of that kind of thing. And it was a 1-year pilot that ended up being 12 years of the Voorhees High School Astronomy Club. Earlier members, the first members were trained by professional astronomers, and later members were trained by the earlier members, so it was passed down. The most challenging part of this whole group of Voorhees High School Astronomy Club was the telescopes, using a telescope, and I think everybody can understand that, right? You can look at constellations and do activities, but the telescope, maintenance, repair, and just even using the telescope is the most difficult part. So, 2003, there was a planetary conjunction at Teetertown Ravine. Conjunction is just when, from where we are on Earth, we can see 2 or more objects in the sky in the same direction. And there was a planetary conjunction of some planets at Teetertown Ravine right down the road. It was a big meadow with big sky. And that's where Mrs. Zmeda was with the young 11-year-old Mitchell. And that's where I first met him. And what impressed me, I was there with the club, what impressed me and the club about Mitchell was that not that he just knew all the planets and some astronomy stuff, but he could carry on a conversation. If you know middle school, elementary school boys, you know, usually it's 1 syllable, yes, no. But Mitchell was speaking in full sentences, which was amazing, and he was very personable. So that was my first impression of Mitchell when I first met him. And then in 2005, 2 years later, I had the pleasure of having his sister Diane in my AP biology class. And she also was very charismatic, very intelligent, creative, personable. She was the class president of the junior and senior class. And she would, I taught astronomy and biology, so I do a little biology and astronomy, a little astronomy and biology. And Diane would say, my younger brother is so looking forward to coming to Voorhees and being in the astronomy club. And I would say back to her, yeah, she coached for you here. And I would say to her, and I am really looking forward to having your brother in astronomy class when he comes to the high school. So in 2006, Mitchell, who was already by then a QO at the NIAA right here, finally comes to Voorhees and joins the astronomy club. And you can probably, whoops, I'll go back. I pushed the wrong button. There he is, right there. And here he is. We had between 20 and 50 members in the club, but not everybody went to every event because we were very busy and we did multiple events through the year. So we took groups, that's about half of the group that went to one of those local elementary schools, and we ran a program for the day. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was in the township. Okay, and in the back is Star Lab. It's a portable planetarium. So Mitchell finally came, like I said, and joined the astronomy club. And the club attracted all kinds of Earthlings to it. We had all ages, we had all backgrounds, we had all abilities. And there's an arrow, there's Mitchell right there. This was our alien picture, just act like an alien for the camera. It was one of the activities that we were working on there. And so Mitch was great because he would work with anybody, he worked well with anybody. When he had explained things to people, he explained it in a manner that didn't make them feel like they didn't know anything. And he was just a joy to have and a pleasure in the club. And one of the things that the club did was, again, have contact with the NIAA. And one of the events we went to was the Young Astronomers program. It's from May to October. It's awesome. They have young kids come here. You have to sign up for it. And they have a little activity. This one is very impressive because in this one you're using dry ice to make a model of a comet nucleus. And even teachers, some of them are cautious because of the safety concerns. I'm sure I want to do this. It seems complicated. I don't want any accidents. And here's Mitchell and Gianna and Quinn, and they jumped right in, and they were comet chefs for the day. So also courageous, we add that in there, working with young kids in dry ice. But a lot of activity with the NJA. This was a community open house that the astronomy club was at. Mitch was at this one, and Mitchell was helping with all areas. We had all kinds of activities outside and inside this facility with the community coming, and a lot of youth, as you can see, a lot of young people from the area. Telescopes were the most challenging topic for the club, and that was Mitch's area. So his expertise and mentoring were most valuable and appreciated. He helped us set up telescopes. He helped show the club members how to set them up and how they're used and how they work. But he did all the other things, all the other activities in the club as well. And the nice thing is Mitchell always said, you know, people would sign up, I want to do Star Lab or I want to do this activity. And Mitchell was like, wherever you need me, where do you need me? So he did everything. And but he was always the go-to for the telescopes. His leadership and personality made him very popular and successful with the club. Here he is leading a game of statue. Game of statue. And so the club was very happy to have him as club president for his last 2 years in high school, his junior and senior year. Now, Mitchell also helped out because the club was doing so well that they were given from the school board, I guess, gave us money to buy a really good telescope. So the telescope arrives, and in the guidebook that comes with the telescope, there's these 2 words that strike fear in the heart of every parent, and that is assembly required. And when I imagine this big box, right? You come out, you set it up, and you look through it, but it was all in pieces. This telescope model is a Dobsonian. The bottom swivels like this, and then the tube goes up and down, so it's really easy to use. And Mitchell put this together. I asked him if he would help me, and for 3 hours after school one day, he sat there, and apparently the directions weren't totally accurate, so he was moving things around. Can you imagine if I would have done that myself, what this thing would look like? It'd still be putting it together. But I helped a little bit. I actually opened the plastic bag that had the screws and the nuts and the bolts in it and handed it to him. And I also got him the screwdriver. And when he said, hold this still, I held it still. And that's about it. And the telescope is still working. Thank you, by the way, up at the school. So it's a great scope, and it works well, and we're still using it. What the club did, and he's in this picture too, working with some teachers. They visited many classrooms and youth camps. We hosted evening star parties at the high schools, set up astronomy programs at colleges and community fairs. We helped train teachers, and the club was very active, did very well. Mitchell was a big part of that. He did all of those things, not just telescopes. And we actually won a National Service Award, and we were recognized internationally by the IPS, as the International Planetarium Society, for the work we were doing. And Mitchell's help there was, he knew it was his constellations and his stars, so that was a big plus for us too. He took AP Biology in 2008. He did not have me. He had my co-teacher, my partner teacher. But he would always, check before he left, everything good? Or at the end of the day before he got on the bus, you guys have a nice day, that cheery face, it's like 3 o'clock, you're like, oh, this cheery face pops and goes, have a good afternoon, and then your whole afternoon seems better. And he would also check in, do you need help setting up the lab tomorrow, everything okay? He was just such a really nice boy, and it was great to have him around. At age 16, at back to school night, I missed one back to school night in my career. I couldn't make it. And Mitchell decided to go home, get changed, drive back to the school 7 o'clock at night without being asked, and walk in and give my back to school night presentation to my astronomy class parents, complete with handout. Blew me away. I was like, I can't believe you did this. Amazing, right? And he was like, oh, it's no problem. So that's, that's the way he is. It is great. But then he graduated and left. So Mitchell graduated in 2010, and he went to TCNJ, and it turns out he was an astronomical and swing dancing success. He was president of the TCNJ Astronomy Club and the Swing Dance Club. If I would have known that earlier, we would have done some dancing astronomy lessons. I did not know that, but he was great, multi-talented, and always happy and very creative. But true to his character, Mitchell always came back, and he graduated in 2010. In 2011, he was right back here helping out with a community open house that we had here at the NIAA. He always is very thoughtful and comes back to give back to his community and his school and our club, and we appreciate that. This gets even better. In 2012, the transit of Venus. Okay, so transit just means go across. So transit of Venus means Earth is in a certain position that when we look out at the sun, we can see that little black dot there, that's Venus, okay? And then we can see it move across the face of the sun. It takes some time to do that. We had over 100 people attending this transit observation with the club at Teetertown Ravine, which is just up the road, same place as before. Okay, so Mitch showed up to help, which was awesome, right? Then when he stayed the whole time, about 3 hours, and then it was time for him to leave. He said, yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta go. He said, but it's my birthday today, I'm 21. On his 21st birthday, he came and did volunteer work at the Transit of Venus with the Astronomy Club. I mean, how cool is that? So there he is right there, the birthday boy at 21. So I forgot that, huh? So all through the years, Mitchell can teach and inspire. He helped little kids. We dealt with first and second graders. He would tell them cool things about astronomy, and then he would just go right ahead, being so diverse in his abilities to teach and entertain and always explain difficult things in a simple manner. And he would come to the NIAA and give presentations on, I think that's gravity waves. I'm not sure what that one is, but these are YouTubes. And he has the ability to talk to any age level and make it clear, understanding, and exciting. In fall 2018 was my last year at Voorhees High School, but in fall 2018 he continued tradition. He used to come back to Voorhees, and ever since he graduated he would come back and he would talk to my classes, my astronomy classes, and he would say to them, at first he would start out with saying, I'm Mitchell and this is what happened, now I'm in college, this is what college is like. He'd talk about research, then do a presentation on astronomy. And at the end, he'd have question and answer. And high school kids, right? Sometimes they're like, oh, calling me. And other times they sit there like this. Any questions? And they have questions. So Mitchell, at the end of his PowerPoint, would have a game or some sort of activity to get them going. And then usually the questions came after that, or they just had a great time playing the game. So it's funny that everybody's like, oh, you must have been Mitchell's teacher. I'm like, no, I wasn't Mitchell's teacher. All right, I was his club advisor. However, Mitchell was my guest teacher in my classes. So. And that was amazing. Very, very talented in all those areas. Mitchell appreciates all he has and the people in his life. And I thank his parents for raising such great people. And to his wife, Samantha, up here, who support him daily. Please, a round of applause. Join me. You guys did good. So thank you to the NIAA, who started this whole ball rolling in 1999. And to quote from the graduation speech of a clever young lady, the Voorhees High School class of 2007 president, which is his sister Diane right here, what really makes high school, and I just added, and life special, lies in the relationships each of us have made. So Dr. Mitchell, you've given me and so much to celebrate. We appreciate you. Congratulations, and God bless you.